What's up, guys? Chasing Lamey here, and we have episode 11 of From Grove to Glory, our adventure with Williams into the world of Formula One in the 2019 season. For those of you who are just joining us, maybe, or it's been a while since the last video came out, we are currently sitting 10th in the standings with George Russell. We are looking at Kubica in 13th, so actually a decent season as far as these things go. We're 6th in the Constructors' Championship. So not a bad season all round, but things are going to change. I have new drivers in progress. In terms of the car development, we are currently working on a new suspension because God knows we're going to need to catch up to the field. But our car still sits 9th best on the grid. We are behind in so many ways. I mean, we're either 9th, 8th or 10th on every possible part. So working on suspension because ours is the worst on the grid. That's what's going on there. We're also doing some HQ upgrades. So we're waiting for the staff centre to level up, the test track, forecasting, and then we're going to hopefully have the road car factory in for next season, which will allow us to actually bring in some more money because money is hemorrhaging. So today we're going to Guildford, which is basically Silverstone. Let's see what it auto picks for the tyres. It says tyre wear is very high, so I think maybe I am just going to want some supers for quali. Not that many supers for quali, it's got to be said. We'll put them on a split strategy. Give us some options. Give us some options there. That works out nicely. Part fitting. I should have the best parts fitted, but we'll just have a quick check just to make sure all of our best parts are in the car because that's going to be vital. This suspension, by the way, same as one we're currently building. They've got a risk attached, so we can't actually run them, but it will mean for next season that we will start off with better than we have now. So it should give us a bit of a head start on the competition. Right, either way, let's get into the race. Let's see what's actually occurring, shall we? Because that feels like a good plan. I don't know why I'm going into preferences. That's not what I need to do. Let's go into the actual racing of racing, because that's what we need to do. I do have a new driver on the horizon coming in for next episode. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So these guys are actually driving for their seats as we speak because the guy coming in is absolutely top draw. No one would criticise me for bringing in this guy. I'm going to reveal who it is in the next episode, so definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, let's get into Friday practice. I'm going to do that off camera as I always do, and then we're going to come back and yeah, let's see what we can do, shall we? So now we're back for quali, and yeah. Bobby Kubica went 3rd fastest in practice, so there's a thing. Soft and qualies, looks like it's going to be the way forward. There's going to be a bit of rain, but if we get out early, we can maybe pick up some time. So we're going to go out straight away in quali, try and take advantage of the fact the AI won't. Looks like we've got on and off rain throughout the session, so if we just try and get ourselves out in the dry parts, we should be okay. So let's hit that first run as soon as we possibly can. Because that's going to be pretty vital. All purple, by the way, on the setups. We've done really well setting the car up for this. So that in itself is miraculous. Let's send these guys out and let's see what kind of lap time we can come up with on that first run out. You would very much hope that we can get round this track. There's still a little bit of grip on the track. You'd hope we can get round this track before that kind of 3-minute mark when it's going to start raining. But we are going to have to kind of swing and hope a little bit. Swing and hope is very much the order of the day. So we shall see what we can achieve. It'd be nice to get both cars into Q2. I don't know if we can get it to Q3, but Q2 seems doable. I think I've said this many times in this series. Q2 seems achievable for us at the moment. These drivers are on good form. They're picking up Q2s. I think we've been to Q3 a few times. So we will hope for the best. I'm going to maybe switch up the speed a little bit just while we go through this this warm-up lap because there's nothing to be learned from a warm-up lap, as we all know. Just going around now, not quite there. watch the mini-map, see where we're at, and we'll watch this time. Kubica has got himself set up perfectly for this lap, but George Russell's looking racy already, so we'll see how that's going to go. It's just starting to rain. I'm hoping we can get the benefit of having the track at its sort of best it will be for the first stint. I don't think I'm planning on running any super soft tyres at any stage during the race anyway, so we can burn through as many tyres as we need to in quali. Just do what it takes to get ourselves out of the session is very much the order of the day. Although we are starting to get a little bit of spray there, as we can see, so maybe that's going to hold us back, but it's very much going to be about making sure we just put in the fastest lap we can, as early as we can, because that track isn't going to rubber in again probably for the rest of the session. I mean, it says going to rubber in a bit in the middle, but also a little bit of rain there. So we'll see what we can do. 10 minutes left in the session, so plenty of time to make these decisions. Kubica has gone fastest of all, despite the fact that George Russell has managed to get past him, which is interesting. Like I said, it's just a good cycle lap for us. The few guys on outlaps, most of the grid in fact are on outlaps. Norris and Albon have gone for the inters, which is an interesting choice, because I don't think anyone's getting a time good enough to get through to Q2 on inters in this session. George Russell's gone a bit wide there, it was a bit wayward, but Kubica has kept it on track, and George Russell somehow set the fastest sector 2 so far. Not seeing any purple sectors behind us, but then again Lewis Hamilton's just gone out and set a purple, so maybe we didn't time it quite right, although, you know, he's got a lot of that lap to go. He's a good third of the lap behind us, so maybe the increasing water on the track is going to be a sign that he'll maybe drop off. Crossing the line almost in tandem, and that's a 1-2, but with the first two out, so you expect that. 1:13.5 is a very, very good time for quali. We are going to wait and see what Lewis brings through, though, because if Lewis can bring himself through to a 1:12, we'll be in trouble in terms of sighting. He has come through at a 1:12. He's almost a second faster than us. Right, we'll have to see how it goes into the next part of the session. Let's get to that bit. So going out almost immediately then onto another set of fresh boots. Because the track, I think this is the driest this track's going to get all session until right at the end, so we need to take advantage here. It's going to start raining as we get towards the back of this lap, so I may not have timed it quite right, but I've done the absolute best I could. I more or less literally came in, changed the tyres, sent them back out, so we are very much hoping that, there we go, it goes damp again. Let's see what we can do off of the back of this lap. It should be less damp than it was when we went through the last time, maybe a little bit more grippy, so it's going to be a hit and hope prospect, really, but we'll have to see what we can do going forward, because we really, really need to get a good time to get us into Q2. Vettel set a 1:12.4. We are a whole second behind with George Russell, which, you know, we need to do something about. They're both going faster than their previous stint. Russell's less than a tenth of a second behind at the moment. So maybe I've timed this just right, but those times are going to drop off as that track gets a little bit damper. So we're going to have to see how we can shake this out. And also we've used a lot of fresh pairs of boots, or we've used 2 so far. There might be a third if we don't get Kubica and Russell looking good towards the end of the session. It's going to be a third set of boots, and I only brought 4. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of worn tyre running going on for the third qualifying session if we get there, maybe even the first and second, because, you know, we're looking for a time when that track's going to be dry, and it's really only the end of the session, the last literally 3 minutes of the session. So I need to get those cars out with 2 minutes to go, and we've got into 13th and 15th, and the boys aren't happy with it. So that's a good sign, but let's see what we can do with a third run on a third set of tyres in this session towards the end, and see what we can bring home. And here we are with our third run in Q1, and very much hoping that we will be among the last across the line. We should be. There's only probably 2 drivers that are going to make it. I cannot see that Grosjean is going to make that, but he's also already on a flyer, so we'll see how it goes. Norris and Albon are the 2 guys I think out behind us there, so we're gonna have to see. In fact, Albon's just ahead of us. He's just there. We can see him now. We need Albon and Norris to not put in better times. Grosjean, Kvyat and Stroll have more or less accepted their fate at this point. We are going faster than we were, or at least Robert Kubica is going faster than he was, which is definitely a small blessing. Although they are both within a tenth of a second at the first sector of the lead. So, it's not impossible. We can definitely secure ourselves in that final spot. It's just started raining again. It was supposed to stop raining and get dry, and it started raining again at the end of the session, which is a bad omen for things going forward. But actually, the rain itself, we can see it falling on screen, but it's not actually affecting how wet the track is. So maybe we're going to luck out with a small glitch in the game, get ourselves through with a dry track. We're hoping Norris and Albon can't get ahead of us, because that would be a disaster. We're at 0.3 down now. 0.3 down still puts us comfortably in the top 10. I mean, Verstappen got through to the top 10 on a set of inters, which is slightly panic-inducing. But we're going to cross the line now. What can we do for ourselves? There's got to be some kind of magic here. We've crossed the line. We've got Russell in 5th, Kubica in 10th, and Lewis Hamilton on provisional pole, which means we're losing Perez, Giovinazzi, Albon, Kvyat and Stroll. So let's get into Q2 and see what we can do. There is confirmation of what we've lost. We've lost Sergio Perez, we've lost Giovinazzi, we've lost Alex Albon, we've lost Danny Kvyat, and we've lost Lance Stroll. So the remaining people in the field, still all the big names, we're going to have to really, really try in this session. Let's see what we can do. Going into Q2, it looks a little bit like we're not expecting any more rain any later in the session. So I'm going to go right to the end of the session, just try and smash out one quick lap on our last set of softs and hope we can make it through to the top 10 shootout. That's the plan. So you're going to join me in a second for that lap. So we are ready for our last run. I've got it paused because I wanted to make sure I caught the clock at about 2 minutes. You can see we're the only team that haven't sent our cars out for a lap yet. The current pole time is a 1:12, but everyone seems to have sent their guys out on track looking for more time. So we're gonna have to really, really push here. So we'll push through the warm-up lap and hope we can get some good perfect ratings on the brakes and the tyres, because that would be the ideal. It should be staying dry, by the way, as we go into the back section. It should be staying dry for the rest of the session. The track is just getting grippier. We should start our flying lap more or less as it crosses into the grippiest part of the session, which is the ideal. Looking at people who are about to cross the line, I think maybe Valtteri can get another lap out, and if he's lucky, Verstappen. So it's very much there on their one and done kind of lap here. We should be among the last to cross the line and set a time, unless Seb Vettel's going for a second lap, but I don't know if he will be. I think he'll be coming in for his in lap instead, which puts him, at a slight disadvantage to us actually. So we're going to very much see what we can do as we start our flying laps now, and Seb Vettel goes fast to his in lap. So we're heading for, well, I say what we're looking for. It's very hard to know what we're actually looking for, because I'm still waiting for Verstappen, Bottas and Grosjean to cross the line, and Magnussen and Leclerc and all the guys ahead of us, so I can get a bit of a sighter on what the actual cut-off time is going to be, because I don't think it's going to be 5 seconds. I think it's likely to be somewhere around 1.5 or 2 seconds, which we're well inside actually at the first sector, about 0.3, so that's not too bad. That would put us in the top 3 certainly, but there we go, everyone's crossed the line now, so it's a 1 second margin into the top 10, and we should be among the last to cross. Well, in fact, we will be the last to cross the line, because everyone else is just on their cooldown laps coming into the pits. So looking okay so far. We should be about to cross that second sector. We're at 0.7 with Russell, 0.8 just shy of 0.9 with Kubica. I don't think Kubica is going to make the top 10, which is going to make it much harder to justify keeping him with the new driver coming in. Whereas George Russell, is potentially at 0.7, potentially able to get himself into that top 10 shootout, as long as he's not lost too much time going through that final sector. We're about to cross the line, so let's see where we end up. Crossing the line, and that is P10 for George Russell, P14 for Robert Kubica. George Russell makes the top 10 shootout, but he doesn't really have the tyres for it. So I'm really hoping it is going to rain all the way through. As we can see, we've lost Raikkonen, Sainz, Norris, Kubica, and Gasly, which is going to give us a tough ask for this next bit. So let's see what we can do in Q3 with George Russell. And there once again our Q2 confirmation that Kimi Raikkonen has gone, Carlos Sainz has gone, Lando Norris has gone, Robert Kubica out in 14th, and Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull out in 15th. You can see we've got Seb Vettel starting or provisionally on pole, Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas, Ricciardo, Grosjean, Magnussen, Verstappen and Hulkenberg ahead of us. So nobody you don't expect to be there. So let's see what we can do. Let's do Q3 and see if we can get George Russell off that fifth row of the grid. So it looks like going into Q3 our prayers have not been answered. It is currently raining, but also it's going to stay dry pretty much until the end of the session. So I'm going to have to try and get out in that last 2 minutes on the best tyres I can muster at the best possible grip moment. This is going to be a real challenge, guys. So wish me the absolute best of luck, because I'm going to need it. And we'll be back when we start that lap. So we're ready for our fast running Q3. Lando could be about to pull off George Russell, could be about to pull off I don't know why I got this confused. They don't even look alike. We could be about to pull off an absolute masterstroke here, because this should bring him around to start his flying lap more or less exactly as the time runs out on the session. You can see ahead of us a lot of the guys on their outlap here: Bottas, Verstappen, Leclerc, Magnussen, Vettel, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg. They all ran on inters for that first stint. It was only Hamilton and Grosjean that waited until it was time for slicks. So we're going to have to wait and see. Grosjean, by the way, is out on a set of scrub tyres as well. I guess he didn't think they were going to be seeing Q3 either, but he's still going faster, which gives me a little bit of hope for George Russell as we head for the line. So let's get ourselves there as quickly as we possibly can, because we have the magic of being able to speed up time. Entered the final minute of the session. We'll see how fine the margin is as we cross the line, because we're just heading into the start-finish straight right now. He's overheated the brakes, which could be a concern, but also Valtteri Bottas is about to go quicker. Romain Grosjean went quicker on that lap as well, which is interesting. So he might end up actually being further ahead than we think, but we're going to see Verstappen cross the line next. What's Verstappen done? He's gone second with a 12.7. 12.3 is the target time, so 12.7 will be absolutely fine for us if we're absolutely honest. The track is as grippy as it's going to get. It's not as warm as it has been, but it is as grippy as it's going to get, and it's not terribly grippy. But there we are, 0.3 off already, so that puts us just ahead of Verstappen. Vettel has gone fastest with a 1:11, which, it's been par for the course. I think he's just going to disappear into the distance in the race, and the rest of us are just going to be trying to hold on to somewhere near him and avoid him lapping us, because he's been absolutely flying throughout qualifying so far. So we're coming through into the second sector now. I think the second sector marker is somewhere near this bridge. And hopefully we'll see we're at 0.9. 0.9 is desperately bad for us. That would put us in to 9th as things stand. We need to try and find some time through this sector. And I'm not entirely convinced that everyone else had fresh tyres. We've gone out at the best possible time we could have gone out, given what we had in our locker tyre-wise. But I don't think we ever had enough to get us through this to any higher than this. It's just, if we can get 9th is a success for us. It's not 9th, it's 10th. We're 0.4 off the pace of Grosjean. We're at 1.5-ish off of the pace of Sebastian Vettel. And that's the ball game, guys. Let's get into the race and see if we can win it. Okay, so heading into the race now, we have let's see what decisions we've got in terms of tyres. They seem like the right ones. I don't need to refuel. Why would I want to refuel? Come on, Bath. Have a word with yourself. I think actually for both drivers, I'd like to keep race trim and medium tyres on, and I'll tell you for why. We are starting on inters because it's raining quite early on in the race. It's looking like the rain's going to carry on to about lap, or there's going to be water on the track till about lap 17-ish, 16, 17. So let's have a look at what we've got, how long these tyres are supposed to last, because lap 15, so 15 should be the crossover point, 15 of 38, so that's lap 28. We might, on low fuel, be able to get 28 out of a set of mediums, fingers crossed. If we can get 28 out of a set of mediums, we should be laughing until the end of the race. We're going to drop 3 laps of fuel, because we usually recover 3 laps of fuel over the course of a race. So yeah, that's kind of the plan, to keep these tyres going. And what's it saying for Kubica? About the same, 13 to 15. I mean, 30. We might have to come in for a second set of inters. When's the rain supposed to stop? The track should be drying then, so I'm thinking set of mediums and then onto a set of softs if we need it at the end. That's probably going to be the strategy. I think when the track actually hits that kind of big damp patch there right in the middle, we might see some guys come in for a pit stop, so we might get a free pit stop out of it. That's kind of the plan. I'm not going to go too heavy on strategy. I'm just going to keep things as they are. I don't want to power off the line, and yeah, we'll see what we can achieve with this, because I think we can get ourselves actually quite a good finish. When we, like I said, we should pick up about 20-25 seconds by not doing as many stops. I think this is the grid, by the way. I should have gone through the grid order. Let's go through the grid order like proper professionals. So we've got Seb Vettel on pole next to Lewis Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc in 4th. Then we're going to Danny Ricciardo and Max Verstappen in 5th and 6th respectively. Row 4 we see Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen. Row 5, of course, we are on in 10th with George Russell. Romain Grosjean just ahead of us. So just miles ahead of us on the timesheets. Kimi Raikkonen takes 11th. Carlos Sainz takes 12th. Then we've got Lando Norris and Robert Kubica alongside each other on the 7th row. Gasly in the Red Bull, awful start of 15th, next to Sergio Perez, who's had a pretty bad start, and just behind him, Antonio Giovinazzi, Alex Albon, then Daniel Kvyat and Lance Stroll bringing up the rear in the Racing Point. So, into the race, 5 red lights. We are going to turn those off of auto, because otherwise they're just going to go straight into hybrid mode, and that defeats the point. So we'll stick with George Russell for the start of the GP. Let's get ourselves in a position we can see over the grandstand, see how this start goes. The low fuel should help a little bit, I think, with the start. We are, like I said, we recover quite a lot of fuel over the course of a race. So this first couple of laps will be interesting, but it's going to be a long wet spell, and we're going to try and keep these inters going for as long as we can. I am going to go as straight from inters to dries as pretty much as soon as it stops raining, because that just feels like the smarter option. We cannot use any of the ERS for the first lap anyway, so we're just going to go on raw pace. We're up into 6th already, which is a very good start from George Russell. He definitely knows there's someone else coming in, our mystery new signing, and he does not want to be the guy getting replaced. And at the moment, Robert Kubica is not making any case for us keeping him on as we go through the first lap. Let's speed things up a little bit, because otherwise we're doing another hour-long episode, and I don't think any of us wants to do another hour-long episode, because as much as we've all got some time to kill right now, an hour-long episode is slightly insane. I'm going to go and burn as much of this ERS off on the next lap as I can. See if we can't push our drivers up into those top positions, because that would be ideal. Lead from the front, and then, like I say, as the track gets more wet over sort of, it's going to be somewhere around lap 5, I think we're going to see some guys coming in and gambling on a stint on wet tyres. So the bigger gap we can put between ourselves and them, the better. We're just about to cross the line, so let's get ourselves into that ERS mode. Bring the power as soon as we practically can. There we go. Bring on some power for George Russell as well. And let's see, we're just going to burn all that ERS. Max Verstappen has gone into hybrid mode pretty much straight away. He's going to lose some positions for doing that. That was a mistake. Definitely a mistake. Anyone in hybrid mode at this point is probably making an error. Kubica has got himself up into 11th, a stonking run. George Russell pushes his way into 5th past Max Verstappen. He's still got some ERS left. A lot of people are preserving some ERS. which should give George Russell a chance to catch up to the back of Max Verstappen as Robert Kubica moves into 10th and starts really making some waves. Can he get Magnussen as well? That would be ideal. George Russell looks to make a move on Charles Leclerc. He's not going to get there though, and his ERS is run out, so that's the ball game on that one for a little while. But we've closed the gap. We're 0.3 of a second behind Leclerc. Move up to 0.2. Kubica's challenging for 8th just behind us, so he's found some race pace as well. And George Russell hopefully can stay somewhere between Hamilton and Leclerc, although we expect Hamilton to get past us. Let's be absolutely brutally honest about that. We would expect Lewis to make his way past us fairly sharpish. He got a bad start actually to drop down as far as he did, but we'll see how we go off of this lap, and yeah, we'll kick it into a higher gear in just a moment, because that's going to be when things really start taking shape, I think, for us. As exciting as the early stages of the race are, it's going to be all about that kind of middle section, that crossover period in the rain. It's already stopped raining, which is weird, but there's no point coming in for a stop now, because that track is going to get very, very wet very quickly over the next couple of laps. In fact, what I might do while we're in this kind of thing is we're going to go into backup. We're going to save some of the tyres, cool things down a little bit, because while they will gain some tyre temp while we're going through this process, and while we are going to lose a couple of positions for doing the backup thing, I think it will pay off by being able to run longer while the track's wet again, because the track should more or less dry out on this couple of laps until we get the rain kicking in. So we need to be prepared for that, and there you go, the rain has kicked back in. So hopefully that little bit of tyre saving we've done there, and it was only a little bit of tyre saving, let's not pretend we did absolute magic there. It was a little bit of tyre saving, but it might be just enough to keep us out on track just a little bit longer, long enough for that crossover period, which is what we all really want. At the end of the day, we want to be able to stay out as long as possible on these inters before we cross over, because we don't want to be going on a slick track with slick tyres. Does make sense for people who understand motor racing. They understood what I meant by that. We need to be able to start picking up some pace though. So let's move forward, carry on into the race a bit, see if we can follow these guys through, see if any changes are going to happen. I don't think Robert Kubica is going to necessarily pick up any spots. We are maybe going to give an ERS push to both these drivers for a little bit, just see if we can make up a little bit of pace. Going into hybrid mode right now is very ill-advised. I don't know why people will go into hybrid mode at this early stage. Saving fuel for later is probably not the way, because you're just saving fuel, which means you're using more tyres in theory, which is not something we want. If I'm honest, you think we want to try and prevent using up too much tyres, or too much in the way of tyres, but such is life apparently. We're just going to keep things moving just for the time being and see what we can do. There we go. We've hit that super damp stage. Like I said, I'm expecting someone to come in for wet tyres, because there's almost always one, unless the AI has been smartened up in an update since I last played. You'd expect them to come in for wet tyres at some point, because the lap times are obviously going to start dropping off. No one's putting in their personal bests here. So we're going to have to hope we can get something out of this, and the crossover point should hopefully be coming very soon. Where are we at in terms of the crossover point? Still a few more laps. I don't want to come in for another set of wet tyres if I can avoid it. That's not the ideal. Just have a quick check just to see where we are at in terms of wets. 5 to 7 laps. I don't think 5 to 7 laps is necessarily going to get us to where we need to be. So let's go back to conserving our tyres a little bit. Because the more we conserve our tyres, the better at this point. We're going to have to push on the ERS. See what we can do. We can't get enough heat into the tyres. The low temperatures are hurting tyre wear. Well, that is not ideal. Although Robert Kubica is currently attempting to overtake Max Verstappen, who is just behind George Russell. So we'll see what we can get out of that. But I do need to preserve these tyres as much as I can, and backing up, it seems to be the only way I can think of to do it. because those of you who followed the series so far know, I'm not necessarily the greatest Motorsport Manager player in the world. We're heading back into that sort of more suitable for Inter's period though, so we will go back to neutral. Kubica's lost about a second to Max Verstappen, but that should be okay, and now we're into that dry period, and I think that's going to be the end of the rain for the race, more or less. So we can pretty much come in any time once that track has started drying out, which will be perfect. Ideally, that's what we're looking for as we move on through faster and faster towards the beginning of lap 11 for us. We need to get this crossover point absolutely spot on. That's going to be really vital. There's nothing actually happening on track right now in terms of the race for us, or actually for anyone as far as I can tell. Robert Kubica's tyres have gone into that worn stage. George Russell should be just following, so we'll keep an eye on that for us. But yeah, we'll see what we can achieve here, because like I said, it's going to be very much a case of keeping these inters on as long as we possibly can, waiting for this track to dry out, which is happening quite rapidly, and then using that as the crossover point. Let's give another ERS boost to the boys, see what we can do to make up some time on Danny Rick, because at the moment we're not looking great for the first pit stop, it's got to be said, and we'll bring it down into a more palatable speed, a more watchable speed, because I think we're going to have to start thinking about some pit stops very, very soon. These tyres can go down to about 10% before they start dropping off. We're still at that stage where it's not quite crossing over. I don't know where we're at in terms of the crossover time. I think crossover time is probably going to be the end of this lap, which should see us through quite nicely. So if we speed up through to the end of this lap, we will see where we are at with the whole thing. That's kind of the plan. I mean, 7th actually wouldn't be the worst points for us. The track has got to damp. Where are we at in terms of tyre wear? We're at 16% with Kubica, about 18% with George Russell. So yeah, we might just about be on the cusp with tyres. Let's go through this lap, go through the next lap, and we'll see where that crossover looks like being. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a little tester pit stop with Kubica first. How many laps we got? 24 to 26, 17 to 19. I'm going to take a little cheeky gamble, because that's 17 to 19 as well. Let's take a cheeky gamble on a set of used mediums for now. Is that a good gamble? Is that a bad gamble? Let's go to a set of brand new softs. Brand new softs might be the order of the day. We're looking okay on wear. We'll try and charge the car, hope it doesn't kill the battery. That's a risky pit stop, but it should be a 1 second pit stop, so we'll see how that goes. We're going to burn off as much of the ERS there as we can on this in lap, and hope that Kubica can achieve something, gets himself back past Magnussen, who's coming for Hulkenberg ahead of us, came in for a pit stop. That's what was happening. I was wondering why we'd suddenly moved up to 6th and 8th. It's because Hulk came in, the first on the pit cycle, really. I mean, obviously one of the first to come in for the pits, but he was the first of the leaders. He was 3rd when he came in, I believe. So that should be enough. I don't want George to come into the pits on the same lap, because I don't think there is enough gap between them. What's the gap looking like? About 2.5 seconds. It's too big a risk if something goes wrong on George's pit stop to do that. Plus, I think what we can do is get a good push on the tyres for the last lap with George, and maybe make up just enough time to make this work. So he can do 22. I think he can probably get to the... Oh, can he get to the end on a set of softs? On a set of mediums? It's very little to lose by trying it, is there? I'm not quite there on fuel. That's the trouble. We're not quite there on fuel. But either way, he'd have to make another stop. So we may as well go as far as we can on mediums. Once people start coming in again, what we're going to do is we're going to start pushing the tyres out as fast as we can, and hope for the absolute best. As Kubica comes in for a pit, let's hope for an absolutely drama-free pit stop for George Russell, who's currently leading the race. Although he is about to lose time. It's a good pit stop. A 1.6 is a very, very good pit stop for Robert Kubica, and as soon as he gets back onto the track and up to speed, we're going to start pushing with the ERS to get him back past Max Verstappen, who it looks like is going for a 4-stop strategy, which is very interesting. It's a very interesting gamble. Where are we at with George? George is just about to come round now, I think. 4.6 the gap back to Vettel. Hopefully that little bit of pushing will have done something to help us out though in the long term. Let's push the ERS as well. Try and make the absolute best out of what we've got left on these tyres as we come round to the end there. And as soon as he starts getting ready to pull in, we're going to switch to neutral on the tyres, because that will preserve these for the next stint. And we've pretty much taken them to their absolute limits, which is ideal. Let's see where we cycle out. We came in, we were 6th as the pit cycle started, which is definitely okay. A mistake on the rear left though, we've got it out, but what's that, a 4-second pit stop? A 4-second pit stop, that's cost us 2.5 seconds. That's poor. He's come out in 9th, which is not as bad as it could have been, but I thought we gained positions. So Kubica now ahead of us on the soft tyres. So we're going to switch. We'll switch to Kubica, because I think, because he's on the soft tyres, there's a few guys ahead of him on the mediums. He is obviously going to come in ahead of them, like before them, but also should get the benefit of being able to go either straight to another set of soft tyres to the end of the race, which is great, or well, we'll see. We'll see is the answer. George Russell trying to push past with the last of his ERS. Doesn't quite make it, but he might have the natural pace to do it. He does. So we'll have to see how this goes for us as a stint. It could be that mediums are absolutely the right choice for the race, to be honest. But Kubica should have the raw pace, and hopefully we'll be able to start making some inroads into Hülkenberg, Leclerc, Bottas, Vettel, hoping that gap can come down a little bit. But we will see how it goes. Let's move again into the super speedy mode, because super speedy mode is the way forward. Kubica complaining they're getting too close to each other, but Kubica should be disappearing, quite frankly. It shouldn't even be close. Kubica should be disappearing off into the distance. We're giving him some ERS boost just so he can make that gap a little bit wider. And hopefully we're going to start seeing some better lap times now, some better sector times from these two guys, and start making inroads towards the leaders, which I say, but we're dropping back. We're 20 seconds back already, which is not great at all. I think Kubica might be slightly closer to the leaders than he was when he came in for his pit stop. But even so, we've got to kind of keep these tyres going as best we can. There's not a lot of battling going on track. I think we're going to go back to George Russell for the time being. We're going to give him that ERS boost, because he is currently battling with Max Verstappen, which he doesn't really need to be doing. He's on medium tyres, Verstappen's on softs. If he can keep Verstappen behind him, great. But, you know, you'd think Max is probably going to get past at some stage very quickly. Although I say very quickly, he's not actually doing great things getting past him as we speak, is he? So if we can keep Max behind us, Ricciardo and Hamilton are going to come in 4 stops. We've not kept Max behind us, but that's actually not the worst thing in the world, because we have got 3 drivers ahead of us who are going to come in 4 stops very, very soon. And if they come in for stops very soon, we're going to sort of start leaving them behind a little bit, because we only realistically need to make 1 more stop to get to the end of this race. Whereas, you know, we have guys who are going to have to make 2 more stops ahead of us, because I can't see them going straight from softs to supers. Sorry, from supers to softs. Softs to mediums is doable as a strategy if you've got the tyres for it, but I think that's probably it's probably a bridge too far, actually. But I guess we're going to see how it all plays out, as George Russell, though, needs to start catching Robert Kubica quite sharpish, because Kubica is going to go to another set of softs. Russell will go to another set of softs as well, of course, but We've very much got to see how that plays out. If I can get Russell onto the softs a little bit early, and in fact what I might do is I might push those tyres to force us to go to a set of softs a little bit early. And again, actually, with Kubica, I can push those softs to get us up a little bit early, because I think that might actually, getting out of sequence might be a benefit to us. And I'm going to go and push, because Giovinazzi is going to start closing in. Verstappen should be closing in on Kubica as well. So we need to kind of see where we're at. Why has that gone hybrid? I don't want to go hybrid. Go push mode. Good boy. Anything we can do to help these guys get themselves some good track position ahead of their stops is going to be necessary. And we're in that window now where a switch to a set of softs will probably see us through to the end of the race, which is great. Ricciardo is pushing through those tyres. Giovinazzi is pushing through those tyres, trying to catch George Russell. So is Kevin Magnussen. But we're not seeing great inroads from anyone, and that's, you know, a real concern, because I can pretty much take these softs and mediums as far as I want to go. I say as far as I want to go, as far as I need to for the next stop to be a good crossover stop. Also very aware that we're about to find ourselves good on fuel with Kubica, which means I can switch him to managing his own ERS, which could be beneficial in the long term, as long as he doesn't go silly, which, you know, he's known to go a bit silly with it. Let's make that crossover as soon as we go green. Let him manage his ERS, manage his own race pretty much, bar his stops, which of course I'm still going to have to make the choices on. I know that middle compound of tyre can go down to about 20% before it starts losing its ability. The medium compound that George Russell is on can go down to about 10%, which is absolutely fine. How are we doing in terms of, are we pulling away from Giovinazzi finally? It looks like we might be starting to pull away from Giovinazzi. We'll give that ERS push. Robert Kubica is complaining of worn tyres. He's probably 2 laps from coming in, so we'll keep an eye on him. We've got a few guys, Ricciardo, Giovinazzi, Magnussen, a few guys into the pits for another set of softs. Now, I don't think another set of softs is going to make it to the end of the race. That's my opinion. I don't think it's going to make it to the end of a race. If it does make it to the end of the race, they've done wonders. Let's get Kubica ready to come in for, I think we're going for another set of softs with 14 laps remaining. How many laps have we, tell me how many laps I've been on this set of tyres? I don't remember how many laps I've been on this set of tyres. Oh, it does, 15 laps. So we can do 15 laps. That's good to know. Let's go for it. Let's push that. His car should be fine to make it to the end. We will burn his battery. We'll go for a fast pit stop, even though we know it's a risk. Let's burn the battery now, because if we don't burn the battery now, we are never going to get there. We're going to attack on these tyres, use the last of the wear they've got in them, and bring him in. That's the ideal. We'll bring him in as best we can, and hope, because I mean, 6th actually would not be the worst finish, but also Leclerc's not making it to the end, Hulkenberg's not making it to the end, Hamilton's not making it to the end. If we can make this undercut work, and there's no reason we can't make this undercut work, then we could be sitting pretty. And actually, I think what I might do is bring in George Russell on the next lap, because there should be 13 to go after this next pit stop. If I bring George in on the next lap, I think he can make some inroads, because I think Max Verstappen is probably coming in on this lap. In fact, I'd say almost certainly Max Verstappen is coming in on this next lap. So we'll give him a push. We'll move him into high attack mode too. His tyres are already slightly worn out. We'll move him into the higher attack mode, because if he can start making some ground up on Max on what's effectively going to be his in lap, then I think we might be sitting pretty till the end of the race. Quite frankly, I mean, okay, there's a chance that the 4 guys ahead of us are trying to take those mediums all the way to the end. It's not impossible, but we'll see how that goes. We'll give George the high sign to come in on this lap. 22 laps he should be fine for. And then we will add charge to his battery too, because we need that to be a thing. I'm actually going to put him on a balanced pit stop though, because I don't want to take too many risks. Which I know looks like I'm favouring George a little bit. We just had a mistake from Kubica, which isn't going to help. But they both had a mistake each now, so it's kind of even keel. That's a 3.5 second loss in a pit stop for a 5.2, which is just dreadful. Kubica is going to have to really make hay while the sun shines now. We're going to drop him back to a push on the tyres rather than outright blowing through them. Russell has got himself in there as well. Verstappen has lost time in the pits as well, a little bit of time. We're very much on a big push. In fact, what I might do, because I think I can make up a little bit of fuel, we're going to go into a high burn just until we get into the pit stop. And then as we come in, as we've done before, we're going to drop everything, or we're going to drop the fuel burn back to being a regular pace, because we can afford to burn a little bit of fuel. What we can't afford to do is give up track position, especially as we're doing an undercut, or we're attempting to undercut. Lewis is coming from first, he should be home and dry. But I'm hoping what we can do is make up some ground. And actually, I can't risk switching to. I can't risk switching to a set of softs, super softs here, because I just don't have anything on any super softs. That's giving me. I've got 9 laps on a set of super softs. I'm not going to get them 11 laps. That's just not going to happen. So we've got to be kind of careful. We can, however, push Robert Kubica up to high fuel burn for a little while, and give George Russell the big push out of the pits as well. So those two should come together, and we'll have them nicely on the same screen for the rest of the race. That's the hope, the dream, the plan. Can we get them together for the end of the race? 11 laps remaining as Vettel crosses the start-finish line. We are in danger of going a lap down, which is not great. But we need to see what happens. We're going to speed things up a little bit, just to see how that goes. I'm going to drop that tyre wear back down to push, because what's that going to make him push? It should tell me 19 to 21. Maybe actually an attack. What's that going to say for attack? Still saying 1920. We'll get a proper deg reading later, but we'll see what we can do in terms of keeping things going for the time being. We've only got to make it 10 laps on these tyres ultimately. In fact, we can probably push Kubica up into attack too on the tyres, because it shouldn't cost his race any either. And if some of the guys ahead of us come in for stops, we will of course be closer to the front. Vettel maybe needs to stop again. Bottas and Hulkenberg might need to stop again. If that's the case, we should be looking at maybe picking up a couple of positions as well, because Grosjean and Raikkonen will need to stop. Vettel's coming for a stop. He's not going to lose first because Bottas has joined him in the pits. So Vettel should be home and dry for the win. We said he was going to walk away with it. He was 12 seconds up when he came in for the pits. Hulkenberg has come in for a set of presumably softs as well. Puts Hamilton up into 3rd place. And we're looking at Grosjean and Raikkonen really. Grosjean and Raikkonen should be able to make some gains. Let's just see what George Russell can do, what he's got left on these tyres. 17 laps, he should be fine to just push till the end. And actually we can switch him into auto as well. And hopefully we'll start seeing some gains. Romain Grosjean's coming behind us. He's on a set of super softs. Max Verstappen is on a set of super softs, which I have no doubt, if I look over here, I have no doubt he's pushing them quite hard as well. Which is kind of what I'd expect from him. Because everyone can pretty much afford to push their tyres through to the end now. I mean, Lewis probably doesn't need to, but will. Ricciardo and Raikkonen aren't currently. Perez is conserving a set of softs. Norris and Albon are currently properly conserving sets of super softs, which seems like madness to me. You'd think they'd want to be on a push. Kimi, I think, is going to try and take this to the end, though. Kimi Raikkonen might be trying to take this to the end, because you'd think he would have come in by now if he was going to. which means 8th and 9th might be the best we can do, which means it's really going to come down to a straight fight between Russell and Kubica. Kubica is 2 seconds ahead, and this is going to start asking some real questions with the new driver coming in, because, you know, we just... I was hoping we'd have a clear team leader. We don't actually have right now as a clear team leader. Let's give it a bit of a time speed boosty thing. I think George can maybe afford to go into high mode just to give him a chance to catch up to Robert Kubica. I don't see us catching Raikkonen or Hulkenberg. I think those guys are just disappearing. I think 7th would be our ceiling anyway. For some reason, Kubica has gone into hybrid mode because he's a madman. So I'm going to take his toys away from him. If he can't play like a grown-up, he's losing his toys. And likewise, I think we're going to give George Russell a manual push because I'm worried he won't learn to play like a grown-up either. And we're going to see if we can take these machines to the end in something resembling decent condition. Talking of which, how are we doing condition-wise? That's going to be a bit of a concern, but we should be okay. We will drop him into medium fuel burn. I think Kubica has probably got enough fuel that we can keep him into a push until the end at this point. So he is our best hope of catching Kimi Raikkonen. He's going to have to catch Kimi Raikkonen fairly quickly. Let's switch our point of view to look at Kubica chasing down Raikkonen, because Raikkonen is definitely not coming in. He's not coming in for tyres. He must be staying out. It's 4 laps till the end, and he's currently pushing the tyres. What is his tyre wear looking like at the moment? His tyre wear is looking at 25%, so he might be able to make it to the end. I'm going to drop these guys back into neutral on tyres actually, because I don't think they will make it to the end. What's it, 4 laps to go? It's touch and go, so we're going to have to hope we can make up the difference on fuel instead, which should be fine. They are saying worn tyres. We've probably pushed the tyres a little bit too far, but they should make it to the end. That might make up the difference between Kubica and Russell, if we're very honest. We're going to give Kubica a little bit of a push into overtake mode because he needs to try and get past Kimi as best he can. So we're going to go and focus on the Kubica-Kimi battle. If we can get him within striking range, you'd think he'd get past. We're at 0.4 now. 0.4 is the gap. Can we get the gap down into 0.3s? If we can get into 0.3s, we should be laughing. I don't know why we're on auto, because I don't think we can do anything without, again, going to a push, which we're going to have to push the ERS, or if you're an American watching this, or an IndyCar fan, push to pass. As soon as we start facing up for that straight, that's the time to just kick it into that top gear. So, round this bend and push. Let's see if we can get ourselves through on this gap. And maybe George Russell can get caught up as well. That would be the dream scenario for us, if we can get them both caught up. And if anything, he's behind. He's behind Kimi. And now he needs to start saving himself some fuel, whereas George Russell can afford to have that push, but he's still got some closing to do. He's still 2 seconds behind his teammate. He's got effectively 2 laps to go now, and if he's going to make up that gap, it's going to have to be because Kubica's tyres start dropping off. Verstappen is within 2 seconds of George Russell, so you can see him coming through and maybe taking 9th place, which will give Russell 10th, obviously, unless they can both get themselves ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. And I've run out of toys in the box to play with, so we're pretty much just going to have to stare at the back of Raikkonen and hope that Kubica can do something, because Raikkonen's tyres aren't going anywhere. I mean, let's have a look at what Raikkonen's doing in terms of tyre wear. He's probably better off on tyres than we are. He's at 19%. He's been saving tyres, something chronic. So I I'm inclined to say that gamble I took trying to push Kubica past actually hasn't paid off. If anything, it might have cost us in the race, because the track hasn't laid in any grip, which would have helped us save some tyre wear as well, and staying dry. But George Russell's tyres are Robert Kubica's tyres certainly are about to go off. George Russell's might just see him through to the end, but I'm going to have to start conserving some tyres with Robert Kubica, because otherwise I don't think they're going to make it all the way to the end. I think we're losing about 4 or 5% a lap on neutral, which should be fine for Russell in theory, although Verstappen does have enough tyres to chase down. What I might have to do is have Kubica playing defence, because his tyres are pretty much gone. In fact, his tyres are very much gone, which leaves... I'm just going to stick him back into neutral. Hope those tyres will make it to the end of the race, which, they've got about a lap and a half to do. They should do. George Russell has apparently picked up a place in this lap. I'm guessing Verstappen got past him, but then didn't. We're aiming for a 9-10 finish, I think, is the headlines here. It's going to be a 9-10 finish. I think Grosjean's going to make much of a dent into Kubica, although he's just picked up 0.2 from that last time, for another 0.2. We could be under threat here. Can George Russell, with the last of his tyres, with the last of his everything, Kubica, we're going to push into overtake mode, because we can. Russell is reaching the end of his ability to push his engine, to push his fuel burn, which is disappointing, but we need to hold back Grosjean, and holding back Grosjean really is going to be the issue. In fact, Kubica has let Grosjean past him, so Kubica has dropped out of the points, and that's a real shame. Partly, I will say, partly my own bad race management on this one. Grosjean appears to be backing off, which is fine. If we can just use the rest of those tyres up, that will be absolutely perfect for us. Not because it will make any real difference. We're out of the points already, but I think if we can maybe push back past Giovinazzi, we'll be fine. We're crossing the line on a push. Russell using the last of his ERS to try and take 9th place. Kubica using the rest of his ERS just to try and hold on to 12th. 9th place for George Russell, though, isn't the worst thing we've done. I think we're heading rapidly towards an hour-long episode. It's just occurred to me. But 9th isn't too bad. It's going to be 2 points for the Brit, which is better than we could have asked for George Russell, I think. There was a time where I thought 6th was on, but over the course of a race we don't have the pace, and confirmation there. Sebastian Vettel picks up the win from Hamilton and Bottas. Leclerc coming in 4th, and then there's a big nearly 20-second gap to Hulkenberg. So we skip the screen that gets us copyright striked if we play too much of that. I learned that the hard way, and the many save screens it's going to take for us to find out what the points totals look like as we come out of this race. So let's see what we can do to come out of this race. What are we looking at in terms of? It's going to show us the tyre deg screen first, that no one actually cares about, the pit strategy screen. Kimi did very well to maintain that kind of place above us. Maybe we could have done a one-stopper and stayed ahead of him. I don't know if I have faith in either of these drivers to keep tyres running as long as Kimi can and does. But the new driver coming in, I know for a fact can. So that is our tyre history. That's a good. I don't know. It was only Kimi that won. What's it do in terms of position tracker? That's a thing I've not looked at before. Position tracker. We have been. I don't fully understand how this works. George Russell was. Oh, I understand. I understand this now. Okay, so we lost 4 places with that first pit stop with that last pit stop with Kubica. We lost 7 7 with the mistake, with the first pit stop. Oh no, let's learn to read. Let's learn to read. We came in from second, which means we lost 4 with that first pit stop. With it's about even. I didn't actually fully understand how this happened. Let's look at the standings. That's the important thing we need to look at. We need to look at the standings. So, looking at the standings, George Russell is still in 10th in the Drivers' Championship, despite picking up a point today. Roman Grosjean and Nico Hulkenberg still very much within striking distance, although Raikkonen will have picked up places on us in that race as well. No change for Kubica, obviously, because he picked up no points, and it's not affected the constructors at all. So, I think that's going to be it for this episode, guys. I'm going to bring it in now before we go fully to the hour mark. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. I don't know why I pointed like I do with the FM videos. You can't see my face in these ones. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. Leave a comment down below. I do respond to comments. I respond to every comment. Follow me on Twitter at ChasingLamely. Same for Instagram. And until next time, guys, I will see you very soon. Keep safe. Have a good one.